Hey YouTube, so this week on Witch Please, I wanted to speak about the magical uses of spices and herbs from the witch's kitchen. Now, I have wanted to talk about this for a while, but the last time I recorded this series of videos, my laptop had a meltdown, which took all the recorded videos along with it. So I'm having to record them all from scratch. So I really hope you like this series. And if anyone should happen to come across another spice rack like this with these amazing vintage spice jars, let me know. I want more. I'm actually hoping to find three more of these because it's kind of anything like that, and I was hoping to um, connect them all together so they form a circle. I would remove this top bit and put it on a lazy Susan with a utensil crock in the middle. So that is why I'm looking for three more of these unusual little spice rack contraptions. But anyway, on to my vlog. Hey YouTube, so I just threw a pizza in the oven, which inspired me to grab another herb, and that herb is rosemary. It is one of my favorites, and as you can see, I just bought more not too long ago, and I've already used up about half the jar, but it is one of my favorite herbs. It tastes delicious on roast beef and chicken. It makes it taste better, gives it such a wonderful flavor. Most people in my family, though, think it smells like pine needles, and it does a little, but it tastes much more robust than that. It's such a delicious herb, and it is one of the few multi-purpose herbs in a kitchen witches or hearth witches culinary um, repositories. So let's talk about rosemary today. Okay, now as I said before, rosemary is one of the few multi-purpose herbs. According to one origin legend, the rosemary began as its life as a youth by the name of Libantos, which means incense, and he was considered so dear to the gods for his fragrant offerings to them that when he was eventually driven out of his native homeland, they took pity on him and transformed the boy into a rosemary bush so that he might continue to serve the gods in his new form as an incense plant. The Romans typically reserved rosemary as a special incense for the Lars, the household gods, while it was used in Greece as an all-purpose offertory incense when precious resins were unavailable. The Greeks also made extensive use of it to crown the cult images of their immortal pantheon. The pagan Germans even dedicated rosemary to their phallic fertility god Freyr, as they used it to consecrate his annual ritual sacrifice, the Yuletide boar. Rosemary was brought indoors during the British Yuletide season as a token of hospitality for elves and other friendly elemental spirits. It was also dedicated to the Norse love goddess Freya, as well as Frau Holler, to whom a smudging blend was consecrated during the Yuletide festivities. Even today, this herb is carefully sculpted and decorated in the fashion of a Christmas tree in preparation for the secular winter seasons. Because the Romans believed that it smelled like incense, rosemary was burned. I'm going to have a hard time saying rosemary. I just know it. Because the Romans believed that it smelled like incense, rosemary was burned atop their graves. This practice may have given rise to the British axiom "Rosemary for remembrance," found in Shakespeare's play Hamlet, because it was considered a native funerary herb. One Elizabethan folk song sentimentally expressed this as the token of longing for a sweetheart. In the lines of the following quatrain, Rosemary is for remembrance between us day and night, wishing that I might always have you present in my sight. Often a corpse would be observed holding a bouquet of rosemary sprigs clutched between their hands as they were lowered into their final resting place. Rosemary sprigs, rather, were also used as to asperge the coffin with holy water during a funeral ritual. It was also customary for mourners to cast rosemary onto a grave in remembrance of the departed. The presence of rosemary at a funeral posed a very practical purpose as well, since funeral processions sometimes carried nosegays with them containing both rosemary and rue in an effort to protect the living from infection or contamination due to the remains of the deceased. Furthermore, it may be that rosemary was identified with funeral customs because the Romans associated the herb with purity and believed that it could preserve the bodies of the deceased from corruption. Rosemary was therefore strewn about one's grave during the Christian era. During the Christian era, this concept of purity had come to signify not physical purity, but spiritual purity as well as infidelity and the feminine virtues of the early church. Perhaps it was on account of its association with the memory that rosemary was said to renew one's youth. One tradition had it that a Haggerly queen famously recaptured her youth and beauty through her use of rosemary. The recipe, which she left in keeping with her heirs, advised that one should bathe 3 times a day in a mixture of 6 pounds of rosemary that had been crushed in a mortar with some water. Until the 20th century, rosemary was sometimes mixed with juniper and burned in France to clear sick rooms of germs and other baleful specters. Burning rosemary was thought to vanquish evil spirits and to disinfect one's surroundings throughout the medieval period. It was also slipped beneath the bed or the pillow toward not only nightmares, but also evil spirits and old age. Furthermore, in South Africa, rosemary enjoys continued use by native Colombian shamans as a herb with which they also banish nightmares. Rosemary was a potent healing herb where it was alleged to effectively treat the bubonic plague, ravaging medieval Europe at that time. So popularly held was this belief that it featured as one of the active ingredients in the renowned Four Thieves vinegar that allowed thieves to successfully rob the dead without contracting the illness in return for their misdeeds. Indeed, rosemary could also banish thieves from one's premise as well as draw good fortune to the home if it is hung up as a charm in the entryway to the home or the porch. Thieves, it was said, could also be incapacitated and deprived of their strength to steal if their feet were rubbed with a lotion made from rosemary root. Throughout the Greek world, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, was believed to have given rosemary as a gift to humanity. Planting a rosemary bush on one's property in Britain was believed to ensure that one never lacked friends. Moreover, this somewhat pine-scented spice was considered an established aphrodisiac in Germany. Tudor brides popularly wore this herb with brightly colored ribbons in their bridal wreaths after it had been dipped in perfumed water. This custom lingered until the 18th century, and until the early Victorian period, the bridal chamber was typically decorated with gilded rosemary sprigs to ensure the happiness of the couple. These gilded rosemary branches were also given as wedding favors to the assembled guests as a symbol of love and loyalty. Rosemary was also dipped into the wine at the wedding to ensure the fidelity and happiness of the wedding couple. It also featured as a symbol of fidelity and was burned for this purpose in Europe as an incense during the wedding ritual. During the medieval era, it was customary for the bride to wear a headdress of rosemary, while the bridegroom and his groomsmen would wear a boutonniere fashioned from the herb itself. They may also have planted a rosemary bush at the commencement of their wedding. In Hungary, ornaments were also fashioned from rosemary under the belief that they would confer love, intimacy, and fidelity upon the newlywed couple. Throughout Poland, wreaths of rosemary were exchanged instead of wedding rings. It was particularly associated with engagements, since newly engaged men would wear a sprig of rosemary on the left side of their hat, tucked behind a band of green ribbon. On the wedding day, the groomsmen would wear rosemary in their hats, while the bridegroom would wear a boutonniere fashioned from rosemary and a white ribbon on the left side of his chest. While one interesting British folk spell from the first quarter of the 16th century alleges that binding ground rosemary flowers to the arm with a piece of linen fabric will make one light and merry. The memory-inducing properties of the rosemary were also thought to preserve love in folklore. Rosemary was considered to be a fairy plant throughout the Mediterranean and Portugal. In Sicily, it was used by the fae who would cradle their children in the flowers of the rosemary, or else they concealed them as serpents below the aromatic shrub. As with witches, the rosemary can also confer protection against fairies. Rosemary can also confer success upon new enterprises and business success. The aroma of rosemary may also be used to assist the memory and to steady the mind when conducting psychic work, or it may be sewn in a dream pillow or tied on a witch's cord to protect the dreamer when the terrors of the night threaten. It may conversely assist in dream recall as well. Because rosemary yields an effect upon the memory, one may use this herb to facilitate infamy or celebrity by ensuring that one is never forgotten in the minds of others, particularly one's lover. It is also an invaluable study aid when ingested or burned as an incense. Rosemary is effective in rites of protection, such as from evil spirits, but also from the threat of thunder and lightning. It was used to bedeck churches and banquet halls during this period of any festivity, and it may also serve as an all-purpose incense herb at each of the 8 Sabbats celebrated by contemporary witches. Rosemary may also be burned as an incense with which to consecrate the rings during a hand-fasting ritual. So, as you can see, rosemary is a herb with a variety of uses that just span the gamut. So, break out the rosemary and make a little magic. Okay, so my pizza's out of the oven, and I just wanted to share with you one of my favorite Hearth witch spells. And it uses nothing more than a cardboard pizza and rosemary. I do similar magic with other herbs and spices that I use in my cooking. Often when I use other spices and seasonings, I will take an omelet pan and toast them over a very low flame just until they become aromatic to help release their oils. But I digress. For this spell, all I did was I came up with a freeform chant of what it is that I wanted, and I just sprinkled the herb on my pizza before I put it in the oven, and I visualized the rosemary needles or leaves not being rosemary itself, but well, in this case, money. Large bills between $20, $50, and $100, and just covering my pizza with it. And then I just catalyze my intent, and I put the pizza in the oven to bake, and I am eating it. So, to you. Don't laugh. Alright, you can laugh a little bit. Alright, so before I call this video a day, I again wanted to give a shameless plug to one of my favorite books on the subject of herbal magic. And, of course, that is Anna Franklin's monumental work, Herbcraft, a guide to the shamanic and ritual use of herbs. As I said before, I started out using Scott Cunningham's infamous herbal, which is world famous, but I never really used it in a practical sense. It the way I think of it now is that is more of the Cliff's Notes version of a book on herbal magic. It tells you what you can do magically with an herb, but it doesn't really tell you the where and the why and the what. It doesn't really explain the detail that I personally think is important, that I wanted to know, which is, of course, what inspired me to want to write my own book on the subject, that that gets not only to the heart of the matter of why we say a herb is used magically in a certain sense, but also it allows for an analysis of herbal magic as a whole, which is, I believe, lacking in today's witchcraft. No one really thinks to analyze herbs and what they do as a class, as individual phylum. But my book is still being written, so until then, go out, get yourselves a copy of this book. It's still available from the publisher, capitalband.co.uk. I did get an email from them. Actually, it was late in the day, just a few minutes ago. They informed me that the book is still in print, but they are using eBay to sell copies of their publications now. But you can also get it through their website, and they do have an American distributor. I am blanking on the name of their American distributor right now. I've clearly only used their American distributor to buy this one book. So I'll have to get back with you about who their American distributor is. I'll probably put it in the show notes. But yeah, honestly, if you really want a more in-depth discussion of herbal magic, get this book. It honestly breaks my heart that so many witches and pagans have become so jaded due to the lack in quality of books dealing with herbal magic. So much so that I have been told numerous times not to bother writing about the subject, that no one would ever buy it, that they certainly have no intention of even supporting my work, nor picking up a copy of the book just to look through it, if not to buy it. Which was surreal to me. I asked them what they were looking for in a book, and they said they wanted to know things of folklore, archaeology, anthropological uses of herbs, and that's exactly what's in my book. As I'm writing it, I even share. What was really bizarre about this scenario is I actually shared excerpts of my book with them because I posted them on one of my Tumblr blogs, and the really odd thing was that by doing so, I was told in no uncertain terms by these witches that I was actually turning them off even more from giving my book the slightest time of day, which is it's just so sad to see paganism has come to such a jaded, cynical perspective nowadays. This is why I am championing whatever. I'm a champion of quality pagan material over publishers that just want to cash in on the word Wicca in a book. We've come to a point in the pagan movement where not all Wicca will do. Just because you put Wicca on a book does not mean it will sell. Just because you happen to be a big name pagan author does not mean your book will necessarily sell. You have to start giving people much more value for the buck they're spending. They need more than just, oh, just do what I say and you'll be fine. Just use my spells, and don't worry about having to write your own. That's a huge cop out. I've seen quite a few authors develop that sort of mentality that they want to develop followers in order to sustain their livelihood. I know of one author. I don't name names because that's not my style, but one author sends along a list of demands before he will even set foot into an occult store. That it has to that everything has to be to his liking. Even the store itself often has to be rearranged for better energy flow for him to even set foot in there. Not to mention the fact that he commands thousands of dollars from the store before he arrives, which is ridiculous. These pagan authors, and even their fans will balk and carp and insist. Well, how do you expect them to make money? Well, writing should not be their only source of income. Write on the side, for Christ's sake. It's not that difficult. A lot of us do it. We are just fine. In fact, a lot of us that do it tend to create books that are a lot better in terms of quality. Just because you're an author does not give you the right to not only exploit pagan business owners, but also to exploit pagans in particular. That's something that really bothers me, and it always will. It's also one of the many reasons that I am a socialist. I believe in economic justice. When you are exploiting people, you are the antithesis of that economic justice because you thrive off of it, in a sense. Even though you may vote liberal, you still thrive off of it because you allow the system to continue going on unchecked and unquestioned. I'm sorry, I didn't really mean for this to go off on a rant, but it is what it is. So until next time, keep calm and witch on. So I just returned from a little shopping. I had to run a few errands, and oh my god, it's hot as balls outside. The heat index is 110 in the shade, and but while I was gone, I was thinking a little bit, and that comment I made about many pagan authors wasn't entirely fair because I know some pagan authors that are really good people. It's just the few bad apples ruin the bunch because of their incessant ego. I mean, I know one who has to be reminded by friends that no one outside the pagan community knows who he is. A lot of the lesser known pagan authors are really wonderful people. Even those that are career writers, they are genuinely wonderful human beings. It's just the few bad apples, mostly Americans, I will say, mostly Americans, big name pagan authors tend to behave this way. But, I know some that write for a living and they are just wonderful human beings. And they agree with me when I speak out against these celebra pagans, as I call them, that they are really detrimental to paganism in general because they make a living off of exploiting their fellow pagans, and that's not right. If I could just give out my book for free, I totally would. That is the sort of person that I am. But unfortunately, because it's taken me so many years to write. I would like to earn a little something from my hard work and effort. That being said, I'm not the sort of person, unlike these celebra pagans, who will give you the easy answers. I want to give you the knowledge that you need so that you can go off and do it for yourself, rather than have to have me hold your hand or have to have me give you a spell for you to cast. I want you to be able to cast your own goddamn spell, and for it to work, and for it to be wonderful, and for it to be your own unique creative genius. That is really the difference between the celebra pagan mindset and other pagan career writers. We differ vastly on those two issues. I wish they wouldn't encourage followers. I wish they wouldn't exploit their fellow pagans, but that's the path they feel they must walk. I have often wondered why. I suspect it's because they always wanted to be a celebrity and world renowned when they were growing up and even in college studying, and they didn't do it, so they were focusing all that energy into something else, which is, it's unfortunate. It's human nature, but try not to allow the bad apples to really spoil your outlook on others. Although, just between you and me, what really surprises me are the pagans out there that are enable this behavior. Because as I said before, I've seen others say, "Well, they've got to make a living." Well, yeah, of course they do. That's what having a 9-to-5 job is all about. That's how you make a living, and many of us right on the side. I have had others really get in my face and become really offended when I explain that there are exploitative pagans out there, really taking advantage of them. For no other reason than money. They want their money. They are a cash cow to them, something to be exploited so that they can make a living, and that's wrong. I've been rather rudely told by some pagans that these authors would never in a million years behave that way. That these authors are a close personal friend of theirs, and that is just total fangirling. I'm sorry. The authors are probably not your close personal friend. It's probably sort of an idea you've concocted in your head because of social media. But the reality is unless you actually go out with them and hang out and they expect nothing in return for your companionship, then they probably aren't your friend, your close personal friend, that is. Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to my little rant there, and I will see you again when I pick another herb to talk about. And you know what? I think I will be speaking about caraway next. So until I see you again, take care. I even have a hard time saying that name.
It's really good. Michael's shooting me, but that's his favorite restaurant. But you know what? We're going.